Back. The two Casual MMA Podcast, the podcast for the casuals from two casuals. Kenny, as always, how are you, mate? All good?
Yeah, mate. Maybe you're not ready for the intro.
I'm done, mate. What are we, 6 episodes in now? And I've just muffed it after episode 6. No good. I still got a bad success rate, 5 out of 6. It's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. I haven't tried it once, so that's all you.
Mate, it's been a massive day for Australian MMA.
Yeah, big day.
Really big day for Australian MMA. Like, we want to talk about two things. So I think it's important to start in a real high. I think a real high first. And we were just talking the other day, you and I, and we're talking about how the UFC is coming to, or apparently going to come to, Australia this year. Like, well, there's rumors going around that it's going to be in Perth. There's rumors going around that there still could be a Sydney event. Whether it's going to be a pay-per-view, whether it's going to be a fight night, who knows? Either way, we bought tickets when there was no main event. So I dare say we'll probably do the same thing regardless of what the card is. But We're talking about how there is, no, like, for the first time is since 2017, that there is no UFC champion from either Australia or New Zealand. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I believe that's right. I think so. Rob won the title in 2017. He won the I think it was the interim title, but yeah, it still counts. So yeah, it's big. We don't have a champion. So we've had, we had 2 pay-per-views last year. We've always had pay-per-views when we've had champions outside of obviously the COVID era. But so it'd be interesting to see if we get a pay-per-view in Australia without a champion. So
now this is what I'm going at. Because we don't have a champion, we don't have anything like that involved. There is a guy who is just making himself slowly but surely known in the flyweight division. He was currently ranked number 12, I believe, and he was fighting the number 9 ranked flyweight in the world. Steve Erceg gets a big knockout win today. What are your thoughts on that, mate?
He's looking good to get a knockout like that cold in the flyweight division. That's a big statement. It's hard to get flyweights to get knockouts. So it's a big statement. He beat a ranked fighter on his debut in the UFC. So he's doing very well. He's got a lot of potential in that flyweight division, I reckon.
Because when he beat that ranked flyweight at that point in time, I believe he took the fight on really short notice as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's already going to win him brownie points on Dana's end and probably on our end as well, like the fans' end. So, yeah. And then on top of that, I think, so this is his 3rd fight in the UFC, I believe. He's had 2 decision wins, but the first win that he had was on short notice. So getting a win anyway on short notice is a big ass deal. And then the second fight, obviously winning decision, that's perfectly fine. But winning by walk-off KO
in the flyweight division
against a top 10 ranked flyweight, I think it's a big deal, dude.
Yeah, same. It's and that flyweight division, I mean, I think outside Pantoja is very open and very even playing field. So I think he has a lot of potential for a lot of fun matchups.
What about this one? Even if Steve, we're just going to go with Steve here, right? Him and Drickus, I'm just off him already, by the way, just because they're last names. But let's just say, so now he's ranked 9 in the world in the flyweight division. A big fight that could be put on the card that comes to Australia could be Steve Erceg versus Kai Kara France.
That could be a big one. That's an interesting matchup. I don't know. I don't really want to see Australian versus New Zealand's beat each other in the UFC. I want to see them both go up, but I'd love to see Steve Erceg versus Moreno. Moreno's coming off a loss, so that'd be a big fun fight.
Bring the assassin baby to Australia. That'd be huge.
Because outside of like he's fighting, Moreno's just fighting rematches after rematches. So give him a new opponent, give him someone fresh, feed him to old Steve Erceg.
Honestly, though, you make a really great point because Moreno has already fought Pantoja X amount of times. He's now fought Brendan Royval X amount of times. He's fought Kai Kara France X amount of times. Brandon Moreno is also very, very loved amongst the UFC community. Yeah. I think it would be massive if Brandon Moreno came to Australia.
That'd be sick. I'd love that.
That'd be amazing, mate. But what I've seen from Mr. Erceg, Steve Erceg, I'm going to get it 100% right at some point, is I'm seeing it different. Like I've watched him. I saw clips of him, highlights of him prior to being in the UFC. And a fun fact, we're actually at the card that he headlined before he went to the UFC. And I've just seen like different things about him. So submission artist, but also like he just seems like a very, very super composed individual. And I just feel like as well, that's a highlight reel knockout on top of that. Yeah. So he's got a lot of different aspects here that really could set himself up for a big title push.
Yeah, and I think he has the ability to do it. He definitely belongs up there in that top of the flyweight division. So it would be interesting to see where he goes from here.
It's great to see, mate, because there is also somebody else that is a rising title contender that we'll talk about in a little bit. But we're going to go on a little bit of a sad note as well now. Tyson Pedro retired today, his last fight. What are your thoughts, mate? Do you like it, or do you you hate it, or what are your thoughts on it?
I think I'm a bit indifferent on it. I like it and I hate it. Like I don't like fighters retiring young. It's probably a good thing for their longevity and their family and such. But the reason he's retiring is he's retiring because he can't afford the costs of the sport. Like he has to go to city to train to get that good training. Obviously that costs money and whatnot, but that's you don't when was the last time an NRL or an NFL player or NBA, any top level sports player retired because they can't afford to the costs of their own sport? It's a bit outrageous.
You make a very, very great point there, mate. That should never happen. I don't care how high up the ranks you are. If you're a professional athlete, you should be getting paid enough to not only get by, but he's on the grand stage, right?
Yeah.
So I think, it goes back to the classic fighter pay. I believe UFC fighters get paid peanuts, and I just think no professional sportsman who essentially is their full-time job shouldn't be, I guess, trying to look for the dregs at the bottom of a beer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like something's got to give. Do you hate the fact that he said that? Like he said that he is doing it tough for money? Is that what you disliked about it?
I don't like. I dislike that is the case. Yeah, like I like that he's honest about that fact, but that's a reason why partially why he's retiring. That's a bit absurd.
I think I actually like the fact that he retired. I think it shows some really, really great self-awareness.
Yep, I agree.
Because we were talking about Volk in the last podcast. Now, it's a little bit different. Obviously, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But these fighters, they go through grueling schedules. They go through X amount of time away from their families. They put their bodies through a shitload of stress. When is enough enough? And Tyson Pedro has already been through a few setbacks. He's already been through a few different losing skids, then go on a bit of a winning skid. And then, we were there for his last win against the Pleasure Man. P.S. That celebration is one of the greatest celebrations I've ever seen in the UFC. That was unbelievable. I love that shit. But, he's probably self-aware enough after this loss. He's probably thought, I could probably beat this guy in his own head. And I think he's self-aware enough to go, well, maybe think, can I push for a title run? And his answer is probably no. And then he also has to weigh up, is the money worth it? And the answer again is probably no. And it's probably easier to give things up when you have other ventures, because he's got that Drink West with Taito. So he's got this podcast that he's doing, the Halfcast podcast, I think it is. Shout out the Halfcast podcast. If you ever want us on, we're good to go. But I think it's pretty easy when you have those other ventures, and I think just the self-awareness. He's
also a gladiator, isn't he? Is that returning for another season? I don't know.
Surely it would be. Yeah. Surely Channel 9's offering him $2 million to go on.
Have to.
To go on gladiators. But
I completely agree. I like the early retirement because like no disrespect to him, I don't see him fighting for the title.
No.
In light heavyweight division. So it's probably not worth No, you have to spar hard for a lot of rounds to prepare for a fight. So it's a lot of damage taken, and it's time away from family. So no qualms of him retiring for them reasons.
P.S. Next week UFC 299, and if you'd like a drink, drink West.
That's a plug.
I'm just trying to like get some sponsorship here. Maybe it'll just get out there somewhere, and then Ty and Tyson will be like, "Oh, the lads, no worries. We'll fix them up with a slab or something." But no, I think there is a time when you have to know, and you have to be self-aware and know when to step away from the sport. And Tony Ferguson could learn a thing or two from Tyson Pedro.
Yeah.
And I think Tyson Pedro, the way he handled it in the octagon, the way he handled it in the post-fight press conference, I think he handled it with absolute grace and absolute class, and I think he should be applauded.
Yeah, and it's kind of refreshing to see, because you don't really see that in martial arts. Like, people fight until they're 40. It's a bit refreshing to see, and it's refreshing to see with someone with a bit of awareness like that.
And you're right. It's a hard thing, because like in the fight game, I would assume I'm not the fighter's asshole, but you would assume that in a sport where so much masculinity and so much testosterone is going back and forth, it'd be so hard to go, listen, I don't think I've got it in me anymore. It's time to walk away.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I don't like some of the reasons why retiring, not good. Some of the reasons why it's retiring, yeah, I agree with.
But can't commend him enough. But mate, we've got big fish to fry here, massive fish to fry, because this weekend or next weekend, 1 week today, we have a very, very stacked UFC card. UFC 299 from Miami, Florida. It is going to be an absolute pearler of a card. Out of 10, how keen are you for it?
Oh, I'd probably 9.5 out of 10. This one's exciting stuff. It's a big one,
because you've got a little bit of what we're talking about regarding Rob and Alex. You have a little bit of emotional. What are we talking about? Damn it, get with me.
I don't know. I'm a bit attached. Yeah, I've been on the JM train for a while, so yeah.
The emotional investment. You've got the emotional investment here. So there's a little bit on. But we want to talk about, same as what we did UFC 298, the fighters under a bit of pressure. What's the pressure gauge at leading up to this card? So we're just going to go to the main card. Card. And the first fight on the main card is Petr Yan versus Song Yadong.
Oh, shit. I don't have that one in my notes. I have to go off the cuff for this one.
Petr Yan versus Song Yadong.
Yeah.
To be honest, look, I'm going to lead. I'll lead this with you, mate. To be honest, I don't think either of them are under that much pressure at all. Even somebody that's a former champion like Petr Yan, I don't believe he's under heaps of pressure, because he's already on this 3 or 4 fight losing skid.
Yeah.
But I think there might be a little bit of, just a teensy bit of pressure just to get back into the win column, and I expect him to do so, because the man is an absolute weapon.
Yeah, I agree. I think there might be a bit of pressure on him. Like you said, he's on 2 or 3 fights now losing, so he needs to get back in the win column if he wants to be considered in that title picture for sure. So I would say there is a bit of pressure on him. I'll go maybe a 5 or a 6 on the pressure scale. But
do you think? I don't want to call him Peter. I'm going to call him Piotr, because that is his name.
Yeah.
Do you think that he has the goods to get the title back? Do you think he can get it back?
I don't think so. I don't think we see him as champion again. I think maybe the UFC might it a bit hard for him, but yeah, he probably has the ability. He arguably, a lot of people would argue that he beat O'Malley, so he probably still deserves to be there. But it's a tough road to get back there. So I don't know.
It's funny, mate, because once you go on a little bit of a skid, like Petr Yan was considered the boogeyman of the bantamweight division, but he was the champion, obviously.
Yep.
And at the time, like him fighting strikers like O'Malley and Sanhagen, you would have backed Petr Yan every day of the week. But now he's on this losing skid. All of a sudden, I don't like his chances against Sugar, and I don't like his chances against Corey Sanhagen either. It's funny what a losing skid can actually do to a fighter. So I don't see him. I don't see him getting a title shot again either. I think he might just almost be a gatekeeper to the bantamweight division again. But
yeah, I think that's his role in this fight against Song Yudong. He's probably a gatekeeper.
But I think you know what? I actually think there is a little bit of pressure on Petr Yan to get this win. I don't think there's a shit ton of pressure where it's like, oh god, it's like the be all end all to my career here if I win or lose this fight. Yep. But I'm going to go out and I'm going to say a 5.5 out of 10 pressure scale for Mr. Petr Yan.
What are you thinking for Song Yudong?
Mate, no pressure whatsoever for Song. Obviously, there's a little bit of pressure because, you know, every time somebody fights, there is going to be pressure on somebody. But when you're fighting somebody who is a former champion and you are the underdog, the pressure's kind of off a little bit. So I'm going to say for Song Yudong, a massive 3 out of 10 on the pressure scale.
I think there's a bit of pressure on Song as well. Like he's had some very good wins, but he's lost to some good guys as well. So he's very much there at the gate. So there's pressure on him to push through the gate and get to that top tier of the bantamweight division. So I'd go maybe a 3 or a 4.
3 or 4 out of 10?
Yeah.
Well, mate, how much pressure is on you watching this next fight?
For the next fight?
10 out of 10 for you.
Yeah. JDM. West is best.
The
boy from Perth.
Oh, stop it. I was hoping that West is best would never get on this podcast, but here we go. Shout out Primal MMA. West is does that go around there a little bit?
But we all know it in Primal. We all just know it.
Oh, mate. moving right along from West is best, please. We've got it's a big fight, mate. It really is.
Yep.
Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena, and it's kind of like old school versus new school. And I think that is the most interesting part of this fight. Could it be a changing of the guard moment? Because Gilbert has been at the top of the welterweight division for such a long time. He is a title contender and a challenger. And Jack is somebody that is, I wouldn't say he's unknown anymore. I think he's definitely known. And he's somebody that's climbing the rankings very, very quickly. I think this is a humongous fight for both of their careers.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's both a lot of pressure on both of them. This could be Gilbert's last chance for a run at the title. If he loses here, he's opened the gate. He's not a good gatekeeper. So this is probably his last chance to get back to that title. And if he doesn't get it done, it's gatekeeper contenders for a while if he sticks around. So I think he's got to try and keep that gate closed and keep JDM at bay. So I'm going to put him at a 9 on the pressure scale for this one.
That's a big one, mate. And also considering he hasn't fought nearly 12 months since he's lost to Bilal Muhammad. Yeah, so a little bit of inactivity there for Gilbert. And I think you couldn't have said it any better there, mate. I think you're welcome. West is best. You've been smart. You're smarter now that you're over there. I think you're right. I think he would also have to back himself because he said in that loss to Bilal Muhammad, he said he wasn't at his best. It was a quick turnaround. So he's out to prove that I am still top tier welterweight. I can still have a shot at the title, and I am not going to lose to an 11 ranked welterweight, Jack Della Maddalena. So I think Gilbert has a shitload to prove coming off the loss to Bilal. And I mean, I think he's pretty well set in stone in regards to most UFC fans and that. I think his legacy's set in stone there for the most part. So I don't think his legacy's affected here. Yeah. But I think in himself, I think I'm going to go an 8.5 out of 10 for Gilbert. I think there's a bit of pressure on here. And I don't know if you want to go into a firefight with Jack.
No, most certainly not. Not if it's going to be on the feet. Jack's hands are pretty good, but this is also a big fight for Jack. He hasn't looked the greatest in his last 2 fights. I mean, the Kevin Holland fight was a fun fight. You can't it's hard to judge that one. But his fight prior to that didn't look great. His fight IQ wasn't the best. So I think he needs to he needs to show that he's a real contender in this fight, that he deserves to be up there. And he is part of the future of the welterweight division. So I think there's a lot of pressure on him, because if he doesn't get this done here, like, it's kind of rules him out for a title run probably for a while. And yeah, I think the pressure's on him here as well.
I've got a question to ask you, mate, because you're a big Jack fan. How old is Jack Della Maddalena?
Oh, I'm not that big of a fan. Couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Would he be late 20s?
I think he's 28, 29, I suppose. I think he's around my age.
Okay, mate. Well, do you know what?
I'll have a quick
look. Do you
look.
know something?
27. Younger than me.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm actually going to go into this, and I'm going to say he's under less pressure than Gilbert Burns. Yep. I'm going to give Jack an 8 out of 10, though. I think a little bit less than Gilbert. I think as well, just because of the age, this is a big step up for Jack. Like, this is humongous.
Yeah.
Fighting a top 5 ranked welterweight, that is a big step up considering who you fought. Yeah. Kevin Holland, whilst being well known, he's not the upper echelon of welterweight fighters, right?
Yeah.
Even though he has beat some really, really credible dudes, I think this is a legitimate test. This is to see whether you've got it right now, and whether Jack has it right now, or if he doesn't, I still think there's time for Jack, whether he wins or loses, just because of the age.
Yeah.
And I think, so as we've touched on it in a few other podcasts, there are so many fighters that come into their own in their 30s, like 30, 31, 32. Jack's still got plenty of time on his side, which is why I think he might be under a little bit less pressure than Gilbert. But this is a big opportunity for Jack, which is why I still believe that he is under a decent amount of pressure leading up to this fight.
Yeah, I got him a 9 on the pressure scale on this one, and the same as Burns. Because if he wants to get to that title, he needs to prove himself with this fight to there's a lot of good, hungry young guys in that welterweight division, and he needs to show that he's at the top of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point as well, mate. Yeah. And it's going to be very exciting. And tell me this, you had a few drinks prior to the Robert Whittaker fight. Let's say, how many drinks did you have prior to Rob versus Paulo Costa? Costa.
It was a few drinks and a few dips in the pool to freshen up and get the sweat off the brows, but it'd be less stadium. No one gets nervous like Rob.
So how many drinks are we having prior to the JDM?
Oh, we're having a drinking scale now as well, are we? It's early on the card, so probably 2.
Any dips?
A couple of ginger beers.
Beautiful. Mate, I'll tell you what, anything to take the edge off, but it's going to be an absolute cracker. And I think this next one, mate, it's honestly going to be a really fun fight, and I don't actually know which way it's going to go. We have Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page coming into the UFC. It's been talked about for a long time. Michael Venom Page is going to come to the UFC, and now it's come to fruition. And what a fun fight to start against the Trailblazer. I love the Trailblazer. You don't know which Trailblazer is going to turn up, though.
Yeah, no, you don't. I think it's a perfect fight for Michael Page in the UFC. It's just a fun fight for everyone involved. I don't think this will disappoint. I think there is a little bit of pressure on Venom Page because he's his first fight in the UFC. He wants to showcase that his skills are on UFC level. So I think there's definitely more pressure on Venom Page than there is like Kevin Holland. But I think overall it'll be a pretty fun fight.
I think because I'm just going to call him Venom because that is the selling point here. I feel Michael Venom Page, right? It's a big selling point. I've heard about his name for years and years coming over the UFC. And I think when you are highly sought after and you already have a bit of a following, I think you have to show up and show out. And I think this fight is really, really fun because I think he could possibly show up and show out. But there is every possibility that Mr. Kevin Holland will turn up and he'll say, you know what? I actually want to fight tonight and turn on a really, really good performance. Because in his last 2 fights, or his last 3, so he fought JDM.
Yep.
He fought Michael Chiesa and he fought Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Yeah.
And even though he lost the fight to Wonderboy, he put on a great show, man. He showed how tough he was. That Chiesa sub, stupid.
Yeah.
Against Jack, he was just a bit all over the shop, I felt. But I feel like that's classic Kev, just like jumping in wherever he wants and just like fighting, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think in regards to fighting somebody of a caliber of Michael Venom Page, I think first fight in the UFC, I think you're going to see Trailblazer at his best here. And I think there is pressure on Kevin Holland to go, hang on, this is the UFC, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I'm gonna say for Kev an 8 out of 10.
Wow, that's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure. Because there's always been talks about, UFC is the premier mixed martial arts division, mixed martial arts organization.
Yep.
Like there's a big step up from Bellator to the UFC. And Kevin Holland is one of those guys, company man. And he said so through and through, I'm a company man. And I think he's going to show up and he's going to show out here and say, well, I'm going to do this for the company.
Yeah, it's all well and good to have fun fights all the time, but you also have to win to continue to have those fun fights, right? You can't just keep losing. So there is pressure for him to win.
Yep.
But to continue to have those fun fights, he does need to win. So I think there's definitely some pressure there, but I think overall it's going to be a fun fight. For me, Kev's on about a 5 on the pressure scale.
Not much pressure for Kev?
Not much pressure, because even if he loses this, there's still probably some fun fights for him until he has to really to get some wins. But I think he has a bit of less pressure than Venom Page. I think Venom Page is probably a 7.5 on the pressure scale. He needs to prove that his skills are UFC level.
Kev is right now, he is Captain America. He is holding up the UFC like, this is UFC standard. I'm taking on these Bellator dickheads, and I'm gonna crumble them. That's why I think he's under a little bit more pressure. But I think for Michael Venom Page, pressure 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, big fight for him, mate.
Yeah. Because with already a name and coming over to the UFC and being highly sought after for years, I think he has to show out.
Yeah.
No ifs, no buts, no maybes. He can't tiptoe to a decision here. He has to either put on like a really, really exciting decision where you're like, shit, like look at what he can do, or he has to just flatline Kev.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I think
smoke him.
I think regardless, it's going to be a good one. I think we'll have a good time watching that one. I don't think we'll be disappointed.
Mate, I'll tell you what we won't be disappointed with. The co-main event, just quietly.
Big fight.
Mate, we have perennial title challenger, the Diamond, Dustin Poirier, up against the lunatic, Benoit Saint Denis. Mate, tell me what's happening with the pressure gauge here. Who's under the most pressure with these two?
I think Benoit Saint Denis has probably got the most pressure. I don't think there's much pressure on Dustin. And Dustin's sort of, his legacy is cemented. I don't think he'll be fighting for the title again. So I think he is a gatekeeper now, but he still wants to prove how good he is. So he's still a legend. He'll be a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. His legacy is cemented. I don't think he needs to prove anything. So I think the pressure scale is pretty low for Dustin. I'd say maybe a 3 on this one. What do you reckon?
3 out of 10. You're off your head. 3, mate. I think Dustin's under a lot of pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, I do. And you know, and the funny thing is, like, you are right with everything you said. Like, his legacy set. Like obviously a championship would be the cherry on top.
Yeah.
But regardless, if he gets a championship or not, he's still a legend. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's still like one of those, you know, blood, sweat, and tears fighters, which like all UFC fans respect and love. But with that as well, he's coming off one loss, and it was a fucking devastating loss. That I loved it because I'm a Gagey fan, and I was like, woo, yeah. But he's coming off that humongous head kick loss, and Benoit is unranked, right? So check that right now. Benoit unranked because I don't think he's beat. I don't think he's beat any ranked fighters, right? He's purely got this fight based off of being one of the most violent human beings that's ever walked the earth.
Yeah, that's fair.
So somebody with Dustin's status, and he is still ranked in the top 5 of the lightweight division, coming off that head kick loss, Dustin Poirier is, from what I can see, with all due respect, he is one salty individual.
Benoit is number 12, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Shows how much I know about this shit. There you go. Perfect. Well, all right. We'll bottom. He's bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I just think. By the way, you didn't have to clarify that just to make me look like an idiot. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. But I just think because of Dustin's status in the sport, I think that he has something to prove here. I don't.
Yeah.
I think somebody with his way of fighting, like going out in his shield, I think 2 losses in a row is really hurts his legacy, especially against somebody that hasn't really proven himself in the sport as of yet. But having said that, I think this fight's going to be, oh man, I think this is going to be lots of blood, lots of sweat, lots of tears. I don't see this fight going to a decision, but I think Dustin's under a bit of pressure to prove that he's still that guy. Having said that, he came out during the week and he said that every UFC fight he goes into could be his last as well. So that's interesting.
Put out the door already.
You don't like it?
It's a 5-rounder.
It's a 5-round main event.
Oh, it's a big fight. Event. Yeah,
that's huge.
I think there's a bit of pressure on Benoit. He needs to keep that momentum going, right? He needs, and a win over Dustin is huge. And depending on the result of Justin and Max, it could propel him into a title shot. You know, if Justin loses, then I mean that could propel Benoit up there for a title shot. To, you know, obviously you have Charles fighting on 300 as well, but he'll be right there knocking on the door for a title shot with a win. And if other results go his way,
how much would a slobber knocker? I love that term. How much would a slobber knocker win benefit Benoit? And just like if he gets the win, because looking back on it, even though Dan Hooker lost to Dustin Poirier in an absolute slobber knocker, it benefited him so greatly. It just elevated his stock. But if Benoit gets a slobber knocker win and he's just like, mate, I am the baddest man in this lightweight division. He's got blood all over him, and he says like, I want Justin Gaethje or Max Holloway, whoever wins this bet, I want it for the BMF title next. Honestly, this could elevate him into the stratosphere. I'm calling it. This is a stratosphere fight for Benoit.
A slobber knocker win might even be better than a quick KO, you know, because if he gets a quick KO over Dustin, people are going to, similar to the Volk situation. Oh, Dustin was knocked out recently. It's similar to that, but a hard, gritty win over a veteran that's like still elite, it's kind of better.
Yeah, because he's come out and he said, like, after his last win, he came out and he said that, you know, he wants Justin Gaethje next. He wants to prove that I'm the most violent man in the lightweight division, that there's nobody more violent than me. And there is nothing better for Benoit after that statement than a 5-round slobber knocker with somebody who is one of the most violent individuals in the sport. And then he calls out two of the most baddest men in the sport next. Pooh, bam. Honestly, pressure scale for Benoit out of 10, 8.5.
Ooh, big one. Getting up there on the pressure scales. I think the fights that we've previewed so far, I think they're going to be hard to disappoint, like in terms of how they play out.
What about Dustin, mate? Pressure scale out of 10.
I got him at
3 or 4.
Yeah, I got him at 3. I don't think much changes with a win or a loss. His legacy is cemented. He's a legend, Hall of Famer. I don't think he's getting back to that undisputed title, so I don't think much. He probably just gets some more big fun fights if he wins, which is like good, but I don't think there's a lot of pressure on him.
I'm going to say a 7.5 out of 10 for Dustin.
No, that's a lot
in regards to pressure. I still think there's a lot of pressure on him to perform against somebody who still I don't think he's proven himself that much in the division at all. But that can all be erased, and that thought can all be erased if Benoit either knocks him out or goes to a slobber knocker. I want to see a slobber knocker. I don't want to see a fast knock. I want to see a slobber knocker. It's a slobber knocker.
Do you want Jim Ross on commentary as well?
I want Jim Ross in commentary. Get out of here. Joe Rogan. Is Joe Rogan? I don't even know who's commentating, but I'll tell you what, Jim Ross saying slobber knocker would be amazing leading up to this co-main event. But, mate, we've got one more. The bantamweight title. It's on the line. The grudge match. The only reason why, and it still bugs me, the only reason why Marlon Cheeto Vera is getting a title shot is because it's against Sugar Sean O'Malley, and they've had a bit of beef in the past. It's Sean's only loss on his professional record. Obviously, say what you will about that fight. It's still a loss. Mate, pressure cooker for Cheeto.
I think I don't think this one will be a slobber knocker. I think there's a lot of pressure on both of them, so they'll be very, very much game plan focused. I don't think they're going to come out for a war. I think the pressure. I think there's probably a 9 on the pressure scale for Cheeto. It's probably his last chance to be UFC champion because he's already lost to Sandhagen. He's not beaten. What's his name? The Georgian.
Marav.
He's not beaten. That's him.
Just the guy who was on our lips all last 2 weeks. Yeah. What a legend. Go Marav. Shout out Marav. Marav, thanks for never coming on the podcast because Kenny can't remember who you are. Thanks, mate. You threw me under the bus, so I'm going to throw you under the bus.
No, that's fair. That's fair. Thanks, mate. This is probably Cheeto's last chance to be UFC champion ever. So
yeah,
I think there's a lot of pressure on him. He's got to beat a guy that he's already beaten, but a lot of people have doubts that he can beat him. So yeah, I'm on a 9, maybe even a 9.5 for the pressure scale for Marlon Vera.
I like it, mate, because I'm going to say 10.
10 out of 10.
Yep. I think a 10 because you've said you are spot on. This is his last chance at a title shot. He's got the perfect guy in regards to style, and any time that you are fighting for the title, it's already high, right? And because of the last fight, like you've already got to win against Sean O'Malley. Say what you will, say it was an injury, whatever. You still have a win against him. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. With the fact that this is a title shot, this is probably going to be your only chance at a title shot, and the fact that you have beat this guy before, and there's already those things in your head going, I can beat this guy. I have beaten this guy. Well, you know what? In Cheeto's head, you should beat this guy. And if you don't do it, well, then that's a massive lost opportunity, which is why I just think 10 out of 10. I think the pressure's right there.
Yeah.
But Mr. Sugar Sean O'Malley, mate, the 135-pound king, who would thunk it?
Yeah, I definitely didn't think it was ever going to happen, but it did. He did get a fast track there, but you still have to capitalize on that, and he became champ. So, but I still think there'll be always doubt with Sugar, so the pressure will always be there because the doubt's there because he gets those fast track titles, like those shots, those big fights, which is fair. He's earned them the way he carries himself, but he's said a lot. He's said that loss doesn't mean anything, but it wasn't a real loss. So he needs to prove that he's better than Vera. And this is probably his only chance to actually defend his title because I don't think he's going to be able to defend it against some of those other guys. So yeah, it's probably his last, his only title defense that he can probably get under his belt.
And there goes potential Sean on the Two Casual MMA podcast.
Mate,
Thanks, Sean.
We've been too nice. We're being too nice.
We're destroying people now. That's it. It's over. Yeah. But mate, because you're right. Because the stylistic matchup of Sean versus Merab, it plays horrible for Sean.
Yeah,
horrible. You saw what Merab did to Henry, who can wrestle and can strike. Stop it.
Yeah,
it plays horrible. But mate, what are you going regarding the pressure scale for Sean here?
I'm going to 10 for him, mate. Because if he loses this, what does he do? Who does he fight? Like it's a bit of an unknown if he loses this. Like maybe he gets to the rematch so they can do the third fight. But he's definitely not fighting for the number 1 contender spot. That's too risky for him. He's not fighting Sandhagen or something like that. So I think I'm a 10 out of 10 for Sugar O'Malley.
I agree, mate. I think an absolute 10 out of 10. If I could possibly rate it off in the stratosphere, I would. Because
scale.
Yeah, mate. Because look, he is I still don't fully understand why he is this big star. it's maybe just his look and the fact that he's had a few flashy KOs, because I don't think he's as charismatic as what people think or he thinks that he is. I just don't see it. But he's talked a big game since that Cheeto loss. He said he's wanted it. This rematch, like, he has really, really wanted this rematch. And after knocking out Aljamain Sterling, after going through a war with Petr Yan, I think they're probably held up in a higher regard than Cheeto Vera to Cheeto.
Yeah.
And if he's going to go through a war, there's a worse person to go through a war with, and that's Petr Yan.
Yeah.
So this is almost like you have to win this, Sean. And the fact that he's talked it up like, he wants to be the greatest bantamweight ever. He wants to be this, this superstar on Conor's level. He's elevating himself to a point where he's got no soft landing if he falls.
Yeah.
Like you just said. So, and he's come out and he said, well, listen, if I win this fight, I want to fight Ilia Topuria next, which is a definite possibility considering, Sean's status in the UFC and the fact that Ilia is now a big name in Spain and probably the UFC now. So he's got no soft spot to land, which is why, if it was possible, I'm going to give him a 15 because, there's literally he's walking a tightrope and there's spikes everywhere. Like, there is nowhere for him to fall and be safe.
That's a great analogy. No soft spot to land. I like that.
Because as you said, mate, where does he go?
Yeah, it's difficult to see. I think the only if he doesn't, if Vera wins, I think the only thing for O'Malley to kind of save face is a rematch with him, and he probably gets that. But yeah, I like that analogy, mate. No soft spot to land. It's a good one.
Yeah, because he's placed himself on a pedestal.
Yeah, I agree. I actually prefer O'Malley when you see him just being himself. The when he plays it up and the press conferences and that, I don't like it. But when you listen to him speak on his podcast and stuff, and he's actually very he's very intellect. He's a good speaker, and he seems to have like common sense. So I actually don't mind O'Malley, but yeah, he's definitely put himself on a pedestal.
I think that's why. Yeah, I think that's why if there's anybody who's under the most pressure, obviously being considered a star in the sport, you're obviously going to be under the most pressure. You are the champion. You are headlining the pay-per-view. So there's that. But I think it's the fact that, as you said, you made a phenomenal point. It's probably going to be his only title defense, because it is a great matchup for Sugar. Because if he goes striker versus striker with Corey, that's not easy.
No.
And then Merab, like Merab's a wrestler, and I feel like the biggest thing that you need to be a UFC champion is to be an elite wrestler, and that's exactly what Merab is. That is a terrible stylistic matchup for Sean. So you hit the nail on the head there, mate. With he's probably adding more pressure on himself, because which title contender can he fight that it's going to be a good matchup for him?
Yeah, I agree. But it's exciting. It's a big card. Lots of exciting fights. Can't wait for fight week.
It's on tomorrow, mate.
Yeah.
Countdown's out now, by the way.
Yeah, countdown's out early. I've already watched it.
Do you know what's nice? I've got no emotional connection to anybody here. I can just sit back and just enjoy the bloodbath.
There's no Gilbert or JVN in Countdown, so a little bit gutted about that.
That's shit, mate. Anyway, but mate, listen, I'm gonna finish the podcast with something. It's very near and dear to my heart, and it's very. Well, I think this could really this could really bring it home here. This
disagree for a long time.
But mate, I'm just going to ask you a simple question. There's going to be no build up. There's going to be nothing. Just a simple question. And that question is, has the aura of Khamzat Chimaev gone? Has it disappeared?
Yes. Simple answer. Yes.
And why is that, mate? Why do you think?
Well, one, he doesn't fight like he says he's going to fight. He calls out everyone and doesn't fight. He's had very close fights he had a very close fight with Gilbert. Credit to him, he won that fight. He had
top five ranked welterweight. Okay, yes.
He had a very close fight with an Usman who was no fight camp, and Usman arguably won that fight. So
what? But did he beat Kamaru Usman?
He beat a very out of shape Kamaru Usman.
And people are holding that against Khamzat for losing. It's Kamaru. That's wild.
He's twice his size. So, but he gets sick and injured after every fight. He's 29 or 30 now, I think. So he's like, when does he make that title run? Like, when does he actually put some fights together against real contenders to prove that mystique, right? I feel like when he fights, he gives us more questions, and not good questions, rather than answers. He gives us more each time he fights. That mystique goes, like, he loses it because he looks like a real fighter. He looks like a human being. Like, there's gaps in his game. There's people figuring him out. So I think that mystique is definitely gone.
You think completely gone?
Yeah, I think there's people will have no problem taking fights with him anymore.
I'm really going to try and be like very open here. Like I've really learned from Tyson Pedro this morning, and just be self-aware and just cut the bullshit and just go straight to the point, mate. Do you know what? I've been on the Khamzat train for a little while. I've thought that a long time. I thought this guy's unbelievable, and do you know what? I still think he is unbelievable. And I think he gets a bad rap because he was this because of how he talked himself up, like he was this Terminator, he was this wrecking ball, he was this machine. He had so many followers and so many people interested in him based off how quick that he turned around in those first those couple of fights that he had. I think it was the shortest time period, like 2 fights in 10 days or something crazy.
Yep, when on Fight Island,
something like that, right? So he built his name off of being this person who will fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. I'll fight every card. I'll do this. I'll do that. So in a sense, I can see why you are saying that the mystique has gone, because he has gone away from that, because he was offered to fight Leon Edwards at UFC 300. Can't do that. Ramadan, which takes away the I'll fight anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
Shit. Right. But I can see how the mystique has gone for you regarding that. But I think when you are still somebody who is an undefeated fighter who has beat somebody of the likes of Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, and I don't care what anybody says about, he just scraped the win against Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman late notice. It is still the Nigerian nightmare, Kamaru Usman. So people need to give Khamzat credit for that win, because in that first round, he looked unstoppable. Now, I understand the striking battle. He looked this on the face. He also had a broken hand.
Oh, it's always a broken hands, broken feet. Come on. Of course, there's always excuses after the fact with these guys.
Come on, mate. But like, again, similar to Sean O'Malley, Khamzat put himself on a pedestal. And I feel like people are chopping it, like they're quick to chop at the legs, because because he talked himself up being inhuman. I'm not human almost. And because he has shown vulnerability in those fights with Gilbert and Kamaru, that people aren't going to really fully give him those credit for those 2 wins, because he showed that he was human.
I kind of disagree. I don't think people are quick to chop at the leg. I think he fights nearly less than once a year, but he calls out everyone after every pay-per-view. So I think people get tired of that. And he's fought 2 or 3 times over the last 2 or 3 years. Like, I think people are kind of seeing that he's a bit full of it. Like, he might not be all what he says to be. He did initially like look to be like this monster, but I don't think it's playing out like that. I think it finds it tough in that fighting those top middleweight guys now.
Mate, he had year-long pneumonia.
That's another thing. He got sick after the Gilbert fight. He got sick after the Usman fight. Is he just going to get sick after every fight and fight once every year and a half? But
mate, I disagree with the I don't think people are chopping at the legs, because like when he fought Gilbert Burns, as soon as there was some like vulnerability, as soon as he looked human, people just quick on the things like, oh, Khamzat shit now, like just because he was seen as human. But at the same time, I get your point of view. I get it. Like I get it. But do I think the mystique is gone? I don't think completely. I think the aura of him being invincible has gone. But do I think the mystique and the intrigue around Khamzat has gone? I don't think completely, because he's still undefeated. He still has those big scalps next to his name. And I think as shit as this is, the longer you wait, and then he comes back, there's even more magic dust there, because he's like, oh, I've been out for this long, and then here I am. I'm back again. Like, let's go. But he needs to be more active.
Absolutely.
No ifs or buts.
I think that dust sort of does fade away. I think that you need to create that dust with convincing wins. If you have a close fight and then don't fight for another year and a half, don't think that magic dust doesn't have the same magic. So he needs to make statements if he back up what he's saying, if he wants to provide that magic.
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I can get around that, because when you have set yourself up as the Terminator and you come back and you tiptoe into a decision.
Yeah.
It does take a little bit of the magic dust away, but I don't think he's completely lost the mystique.
Although we are forgetting, we haven't mentioned the Kevin Holland fight. He steamrolled Kevin.
Oh yeah, whoa!
So there was that. So yeah.
Okay, you know what? I'm still on the Khamzat train. I don't think I'm on the Khamzat train as hard as I was. Do I think he will become UFC middleweight champion? Yes. At some point I do.
Maybe you're not the conductor anymore. You're a few carriages back.
Mate, look at these analogies we're coming up with. Holy shit. Someone stop us. Wowza. Jeez, the Too Casual Analogy podcast.
I think I missed the Khamzat train. I didn't get on board that one.
You never got on board, mate. I'm still I don't think I'm driving it anymore. I think I'm like sort of, the offsider, just sitting there just like, all right, cool. Pressing buttons. We're going this way. Like that's it. But,
yeah, fair enough.
Mate, another great podcast, another one in the books. Episode 6. Someone stop us.
299 fight week. It's going to be a good week. Fight week's always a good week. Not working next weekend, so be a good weekend for UFC as well.
How good, mate. So in the next podcast, we'll obviously talk about what we like during the week, give our predictions. Always a fun podcast. So
predictions.
If you've tuned into this one, tune into the next one, because let me tell you something. I'm coming for it all. I'm coming for 5 out of 5 tips, because last one I was 1 out of 4. It was horrendous. So I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to get some credibility back.
I think we'll be struggling to get some credibility, but we'll give it a go.
We will, mate.
Yeah.
But as always, Kenny, been a pleasure as always, mate. Another fun podcast in the books, episode 6.
Thank you. See you next week.
All right, mate. Talk to you next week. See you guys.
Bye.